I'm that girl who knows everything is part of awakening humanity up, and start feeling into their own feelings, start being independent with your own truth, and to not be afraid of what the current trends are. If that is not what you are thinking and feeling, you're allowed to say it and to think it and to potentially share it, right? But it seems like a lot of people are still on that sidewalk watching that butt naked emperor telling everyone about his new garments, and everyone looking around seeing for the very own eyes stuff that is private. So there's that. So everything is to awaken humanity up to how humanity is, to the manipulation, the corruption, and the whole sort of agendas that aren't honest and helping share the truth. And it seems like this gang mentality is very interesting. And we have heard many times in sessions, we must be not labeling people with things, because that's kind of really lazy assumptions. And say, for example, people calling out those narcissists, right? So what is a narcissist? We've discovered this and discussed this many times in sessions, which is hurt children that are in adult bodies reacting. Hurt people, and hurt people are pretty selfish as well as they do that, because they're completely oblivious to all their actions and behaviors and demeanors and all that sort of stuff, right? Like, it's really obvious when people are hurting. Usually they will distract themselves, blame lots of other people, and a whole lot of stuff, right? We know what it looks like. And everything that our collectives are doing now to help awaken humanity is always very purposeful. So all of the things that are unfolding is to trigger people potentially into looking at their own experiences from the past, whether they were victims or whether they have done things to other people. If you have done something bad to someone, you kind of know it. You've got that guilty, you've done something not right. You can judge, oh, they made me do it, or it was the alcohol, or something. When you're not willing and ready to admit that you haven't made always best choices, you sort of disconnect yourself to that to some degree. And when you want to justify your choices, if you love drugs, for example, and think that it's fantastic, you will support anyone else that's doing the same thing to support you. Ultimately, it's always to support your own choices, right? So super interesting. We ask so much stuff in sessions, and we hear the same consistent information about the teachable moments, that everything is happening to help awaken humanity, to learn and to be triggered and to grow from, and all that stuff. Nothing is an accident and nothing's a coincidence. So there's that. Very fascinating, very fascinating. So we can see how people are reacting and responding. And if we are still got this perspective that we're allowed and are entitled to judge and cast judgment on others, when we're not looking at their inner hurts, when we're not respecting them as challenged people who are not empowering themselves, all that fun stuff, we have to have compassion for everyone. We don't honestly have the luxury of judging or casting aside, or the channel that I did yesterday was very interesting. He has wanted to come in many times, but his energy is so strong that when I did that, my eyes there was just so much tears just streaming. It was so intensive. His love for us is so profound, has always been very, very, very profound. And it seems like they're watching us, all our collectives are watching us with our choices, how we conduct ourselves, how our demeanors are, how our what our agendas are to others, and a whole lot of stuff. And he's still seeing people not loving themselves. And he sees that as a problem. Well, it's not judgment. We should have been evolved more than that. And he's seeing people that have favorites with other people, and that we are not seeing each other as equals. You can't truly be a big light warrior hero, whatever you're trying to be here, and to empower humanity and empower yourself, if you still have judgment and favorites and see people less than. And it is, it was a very short but very profound channeling message that he had for you all. And it was beautiful. It was so full on that there was just so much tears. And it wasn't sad tears, it was love, just pure love, just flowing through. And he really wants everyone to feel that. And he was not mucking around, was he? He was pretty direct. And I could feel people being triggered by that because they still don't like to be told what to do. Even if it is love yourself, stop judging others, stop resisting yourself from being loving to others, see everyone as equal and love everyone as equal. It's kind of a simple message, and it feels like many people have been trying to say this to humanity for a very long time. But we get to choose whether we want to participate in that or not. And it doesn't need to wait until after the big events. And the big events are coming. And the next few months are going to be very interesting as things start to take place. There's still other experiences people need to have those opportunities to organically awaken to themselves about the agendas that aren't truthful, that aren't empowering. So they're trying to make it super obvious, super obvious. But if you're trying to go with the flow and trying to be a gang and not think for yourself and certainly not feel into your truth for yourself, and you're making up your minds of judging others through what other people are saying and what the common trend is, it's kind of a problem. They sort of see it as if you're not strong enough to stand up to the truth for yourself and own your own integrity and your own truth and being afraid of backlash, then you need lots more inner work to empower yourself. Your truth is your truth is your truth is your truth. And we hear this so many times in sessions, what our truths are. But many people are afraid to empower themselves and stand up and support their own truths. It's very interesting when you're channeling your subconscious and you can't even endorse and support the information they're sharing. What do you do with that? They're wanting you to empower yourself, and they're wanting you to empower others with their truth. It's not ego. You know that all humans are very limited with their perceptions. They can't fully see the bigger perspective of everything, nor should they, because they're still living 3D lives. To choose to have compassion and unconditional love for all. And yet that seems to be an untrendy hobby for some. So it's very interesting what's coming. And as I've said many times before, for those people who are listening and trying to read in between the lines, we must be prepared for everything while not being afraid of anything, while understanding that all life exits are contracts. And when we leave these bodies behind, we merge into higher dimensional bodies. Remember, we don't mourn our caterpillar phase. We celebrate our butterfly phase. And I know the difference now between a red emerald and a monarch butterfly. And while they look similar, they're not the same. So there's that. I'm constantly growing, constantly learning, and constantly proud of my choices to expand myself and learn as much as I can while I'm still here to be of service. I want to be completely honest with any of my limited perspectives and to be able to grow upon them constantly. I'm holding myself accountable. And I love that because I'm growing so much when I don't make lazy assumptions that I know certain things, including when we know about Dolores Cannon and we respect all of her research of the 40 years that she did her great, fantastic gift to humanity work as a humanitarian. She discovered quite a lot of things in her sessions, including this. You cannot have negative entities attach you. You cannot have negative entities attach you. It is all contracts when you have soul essences walking in, and it's very significant. And we've explored this many times in sessions. And what the subconscious will say when we try to ask, why do people say that they have negative entities attached into them? Now, this is different from what you were hearing about the draconian. We're going to call him Dylan the draconian, Dylan the villain, but he's not a villain at all, is he? He is a soul essence having his own experiences on his own evolutionary journey to grow. And he's chosen to grow and have more experiences because he's excited about his future, knowing the more you learn, the more you grow, the more opportunities you have to be having advancements. That is fantastic, right? We all should be excited and wanting to have more advancements than sitting and being stuck in a third dimensional capacity. It's a choice. And so Dolores Cannon knew that people didn't want to be honest with their own traumas. They didn't want to be held accountable for potentially some of their actions and behaviors. And so they may create an isolated identity that is not their responsibility and that they're simply victims. And therefore, they create the illusion that they have a negative entity attachment because they do not take ownership of their own issues and baggages or trauma. And so they see it as a separate. As you know, we are all one. And when we explore this in sessions and we ask, what is going on there? What is that problem? Say, for example, there is a problem with the knee. Now, if a practitioner says, is that an entity? Is that a negative entity, subconscious? The subconscious will say, well, it's there's a problem there. And so you have to really listen hard to what practitioners are asking, because you can talk to the subconscious and label everything as you choose, but the subconscious sort of dumbs down answers for you because they know you're only able to understand it as being victims. And if you actually explored certain things correctly in sessions, you would know that is the reluctance of the knee moving forward. And so the client doesn't want to move forward. The client wants to be a victim and to blame someone else moving forward. And so they will have a detached association to an energy, which is their own reluctance of moving forward. But they don't want to own it. They don't want to be responsible for their lack of choices moving forward. So they're going to create being a victim. And they're going to create having a different being, a negative entity. And so, as Dolores would say, if anyone's done her course and listened and respected her, there is no negative entities. It's just we all create them for our own needs and purposes to not be responsible for what's going on with us. It's very interesting. And when you explore honestly with integrity with this work, the subconscious will very clearly explain what your client is doing to themselves. Now, there is a difference between Dylan the Draconian coming in and seeing you're in a vulnerable state, you're in a low frequency vibrations because you're either drunk or you're on drugs, and he sees an opportunity to come in and sow seeds of negativity. Now, what do we know about seeds? We can plant them and germinate them, grow them, prune them, feed them, expand upon them, and keep those plants alive. Or we could realize, oh, this is a tempting thing. I can see that this is here and I can sense into it. Am I going to feed it with my attention and energy, or am I going to know this is not for me? No, I'm not going to go into that negative spin, that self-doubt or self-judgment or distrust of others or something. You're going to take that bait, and whether you want to sort of see it as, a good little angel on your side, which is your subconscious, and then, a bad little angel on your side, which is, potentially Dylan. And they're both trying to give you input. And we get to choose which one we go for, right? But ultimately, it's all our choices. So we're not vulnerable victims to anything because we make choices. And when I've explored with sessions with people who have had big named practitioners doing sessions with them, and I've asked them, how has it gone? And we've explored all of their things. And I've heard, oh, they had 3 entities that were stuck, that were negative, that was holding them back. When we explored that in sessions, it was very interesting because the subconscious would say, oh, it never was a negative entity. They didn't want to admit to themselves that they were holding their voices back because they were verbally abused by their father when they were younger. They don't recognize that they were victims. They don't recognize they've held on to their truth and their voices. So they've created this negative entity, which is, you know, a block for them, but they don't associate it with being something that they've consciously put on themselves. So therefore, it is a block, a negative block. And so, you know, humans love their labels, don't they? But when you actually ask what's going on there, it's really significant to get to the root of it. And if you're pretending that it's a negative entity, you're not getting to the root of it for your clients at all, because your clients have to understand everything that is happening to them is on their choices, their making, their decisions, their perspectives. It's a huge difference. We've discussed it many times in the past, and I felt like I'd already sort of mansplained it enough, but it's come to my attention again that people still think that there are negative entities that people are vulnerable victims to. Certain people have been removed from being official QHHT practitioners because they have been selling that nonsense for a long time. And they were removed from it because that is not the belief system of Dolores Cannon or other practitioners who know what they're doing in sessions and actually ask the right appropriate questions to the subconscious. So do you want to have your clients be truly honoring their own choices and decisions? Because if you don't get to the core of their own problems, you're wasting that session. Because then you're going to make the client think they're vulnerable victims to other entities and other negative things. It gets tricky. It absolutely gets tricky, but we're supposed to be empowering people to be responsible for their own choices and behaviors and mindsets and perceptions, and not let them think that they're vulnerable victims and they'll go to the supermarket and pick up 2 negative entities along the way. It doesn't happen like that. And most people are so high frequency vibrational, they could never be touched by anything negative anyway. They wouldn't even notice that little Dylan on their shoulder trying to sow those seeds of doubt and insecurities and a whole lot of stuff. So have your own sessions. Make sure your practitioner is knowing what they're asking and they're not using lazy assumptions to have ill-fitted labels to ask your subconscious certain things. This is why it's really nice to have mature, spiritually mature, honest practitioners who have done so much of their own inner work and can freely share with you their own session when they ask their own subconscious, should I be a practitioner? If you ask your practitioners, did you have a session and your subconscious said you should do these sessions? It's a very valid question to have. Most people should be able to have the endorsement of their own subconscious saying, yes, they are fully responsible and respectful to the high dimensional beings and to people in general, that they should absolutely be practitioners because they would be such a beautiful gift to this work and a real asset to helping humanity. And as we know, many people love to jump onto these sort of things thinking that they will be able to just easily master this and manipulate it for their own purposes and agendas. It doesn't work out well for them. And we know that. So resonate high enough that you can find your own truth to then be able to find others. Because when you match for like frequency vibrations, you suddenly discover that there is a awakening world out there with really profound, really intellectually, fantastically in tune people. And we all deserve that, right? Because we've worked so hard, we want to be able to find our tribes, our like-minded tribes here. So that's a motivation, great motivation in my opinion. So remember, be prepared for everything because you're in complete balance and neutral in respect of all life contracts and all experiences that are to help awaken humanity, to be able to help them find their moral compasses, to speak their truth and not be afraid. It's very important times. And I say this with much love to everybody. Drink your water and hey, interns are free.